Welcome to the lesson on solving square root and other radical equations. Solving square root equations. So you're going to see equations now with radicals in them. Don't be alarmed. Okay? To get rid of those radicals, we can square both sides. So, or raise it to the nth power, whatever the radical calls for. So, for example, if it's a square root in this problem, we would square both sides to get rid of the radical. We would do the opposite. For example, we could write that as x minus 1 to the 1/2. So we want to square it. If we square it, we would have x minus 1 to the 2/2, or the 1, or the first power, which really is just x minus 1. So you see that in the step-by-step process here. First thing you want to do is square both sides. It's set up to square both sides. It's already set up to do that. So you can do that right away. However, you want to make sure that the radical is by itself on one side. Okay? Everything that is not inside the radical has to be moved to the other side. So when I square the radical, I can easily just write what's inside the radical. The radical and the exponent will cancel themselves out, essentially. Okay. The right side is different. Now, there's a very common mistake that people make when they're solving these problems. So listen very closely. If you see something like this, x minus 7 squared, do not, this is very tempting, just square both of the insides. Do not do that. Why doesn't that work? This is why it doesn't work. 3 plus 4 squared. If we do that the wrong way, the tempting way, the wrong way though, we would do 3 squared plus 4 squared, and we would get 9 plus 16, which would be 25. That would be our answer. However, that is wrong. If we do 3 plus 4, you get 7. Seven squared is 49. Since we always do what's in the parentheses first, this has to be the right way. This just proves that squaring both of the middle terms is not the same. It is not a good option. Do not do it. However, what you can do is multiply them together. So x minus 7 times x minus 7. That is the product of perfect squares. So x squared minus 14x plus 49, x minus 1 equals x minus 1. So that's after we squared. From here on out, after this, we simply just solve for x. So I can do that. X minus 1 equals x squared minus 14x plus 49. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides and get 50. I'm going to subtract an x from both sides and get negative 15x. I can factor that into x minus 5 and x minus 10. So our answers are 5 and 10. That is our answer. Those are our answers algebraically. However, whenever you square something, there's a possibility that you may find what's called an extraneous solution. It's a solution that comes by squaring something that you didn't, it just doesn't work. Okay, so for example, I know that negative 2 does not equal 2. However, if I square both sides, I get 4 is equal to 4. That 2 is an extraneous solution, that negative 2. That's an example of what an extraneous solution is. So, you always, whenever you square something in a problem, you always need to make sure you check your answer. Here's a quick example of why that wouldn't work. If we took square root of x and squared it, and say the square root of x equals negative 3, and we square that, we get 9. Square root of x equals negative 3. Well, does it? Well, let's take the positive, remember, the positive square root. Whenever we see a square root, it is a positive square root. If it doesn't indicate negative square root, then we only concern the positive square root. So the positive square root of 9 is 3, which does not equal negative 3. So therefore, x equals 9 is an extraneous solution. So let's plug in or substitute our answers that we got back into the original equation and solve to see if the equation holds true. Does 2 equal negative 2? No. Therefore, x minus 5 is not a solution. It is extraneous. X minus 10, we substitute that in, we get 3 equals 3. That is true, so the statement is true, the equation is true, and therefore our answer is x equals 10. That's all I have for you for this lesson. Go ahead, try your homework. If you need help, go to the Math Cafe, reach out to me. If you have any questions, I'll be in the Math Cafe Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 11 a.m. I'll see you in live class.